normally there's two very competent people here, so I'll do my best. I'll tell you what is on the agenda, and then we'll get going. I'm hoping to get a report from the Spokane Regional Health District, a report on Camp Hope, a report from the Salvation Army, a report from Karen Stratton, City Councilwoman, Catholic Charities on the Catalyst Project, and talk about other options for. I'm starting.
I'm trying to record everyone.
I'm starting, folks.
We're starting.
We're going. We're going. Thank you. And we do not have the ability to live stream, but Dan, thank you, Dan, is going to record it. He'll put it up on YouTube. I'll send the link out. As long as we're at that point, I'll just mention this. The downtown, and this is probably, unless somebody else comes up with an ability to live stream, we're not going to have the ability to live stream this meeting. If this works with Dan, we have the ability to record and post and watch it later. That's option number one. Option number two is to meet at the downtown library. They will give us enormous tech support. They will give us live streaming, they will give us recording, they will give us the option to do Zoom. They will give the option for a presenter to be off-site and to present, and we can see it in the building, and people out there can see it. It'll be interactive. It'll be a really high-tech, good system. Downside, parking downtown is not always easy. Upside is the library serves a lot of the folks that we serve, so they may have better access to being at our meeting and even being a part of our meeting. So I don't need an answer right now, but I'm going to, on the next sort of email that I send out, I'm going to propose these two options and ask what people's preferences are. Let me just get a quick sense. You can change your mind on this. Those you sitting here, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand for one or for two. One being what we're doing here today. How many would say, keep that one, Barry? Two, go to the library. That is, I'll see. And the coalition leadership, we want to serve you the best we can. So we'll get feedback and we'll go for that. So the presenters that are here, the Salvation Army, I asked them to come and give us a report on just how they're doing specifically. We're interested in how they're doing now with the track shelter and cannon shelter since they've taken those over, but they also have to weigh out a lot of other things. So could Major Ken, could you come on up here and tell us how things are going? Give Major Ken a round of applause. Thank you.
I would feel like I'm on football every time I come to this.
Excuse me, Barry, can we kill the music? There's music.
Yes, I can. You go right ahead and I'll turn the music down.
No problem. All right, well, Major Ken Perrine, and I just want to give you a little bit of update on some of the main things we're doing. The way out shelter is actually going very well at the moment. Not the moment, it's been going very well. Seen about a third of the folks that have come in actually exit successfully, so that's been really a positive thing, so we're very happy about that. Some of the other projects that are going on right now, obviously we took over Trent and Cannon, and those are we're in the process of getting employees hired and getting folks on board, and then we're also kind of dealing with some other stuff that needs to be worked out, such as beds. They have wood beds, which attract bed bugs, so we're moving over to a metal bed system, and new mattresses that are closed off so that we can again deal with bugs and those kinds of things. So a lot of great things are happening. It's moving along. We have 350 beds on order, and they're supposed to be here on December 18th. Cassandra's supposed to keep me on track with these, right? If I get dates wrong, it's supposed to be here on December 18th. We still have some other issues we're working on. The shower issue is still an issue. Getting those fully operational all the time has been a struggle, but we're working with the city, and they've been working with us to get that done. We have another shower unit on the way once the electrical stuff gets moved around, so that'll be on the way. And then a lot of good stuff going on. couple hiccups at the beginning, but we're moving forward. So remember, we're housing 275 individuals, and then it's a lot of people. And so with that many people there, it has some challenges, but we're working through that whole process. So we're very, very pleased with the staff we've had on. And by the way, we're hiring, so if you have good people that want to get a job, we're definitely hiring folks to come by and join us.
Question?
And I'll ask you to repeat it for the.
Yeah.
When the French shelter, Mike said there were only 500 beds. Why are there only 75?
What's your name?
So we were told that there were.
No,
She
that's
wants
what's your
to know
name?
your name.
Daily with who? Daily with who? Okay, Bailey, just moving on. So Bailey from the House of Charity asked, when Mike Shaw said first opened the Trent shelter, he said it would have 500 beds. I would just say that I can't speak to what Mike Shaw had said. What I can say is that we worked with an architect and the layout of the beds. And what's going to happen with the new layout of the beds, we're trying to provide some kind of autonomy with still having that many people in the shelter. So we're trying to lay out the beds in a 4-person pod so that they'll be separated from the beds around them while also providing kind of a little sense of community in the little 4-person pod rather than just trying to have all the beds lined out in one way. So that's the way the beds are designed when they're coming in, and when laid out that way, we can only do 350 beds. Plus, we also have to have congregate space. You can't just shove that many people into a building and they have no place to sit, eat their meal, or talk, or communicate, or do those things. So there's a lot more that's needed rather than just shoving all these people into a room.
So do you think 350 is the max for that facility?
The way our articulated out,
Yeah.
350 would be the maximum.
Okay.
But we're going to be the goal is to be operating around 250 and then surging up to 350.
Okay. Don, and then this gentleman here with a question, if you have time to take questions.
Sure. Don?
John Schuster, and kind of about the beds. When we toured it, when it opened, I don't know if you were there, they kind of laid out that there were going to be almost like tiny homes there. Do you know what I mean? So they were pods, but they were actually like pod homes with like a door. Is that still a plan or not?
Don from
League of Women Voters.
So Don from the League of Women Voters asked, when the original plan was given, there was a plan or a drawing of individual type pod homes inside. Make sure I don't get this wrong, Don. And so she asked, is that still going to be happening? That's a great question. That's not part of the current plan or what was expressed to us, what the city county desired. So at the moment, they were really just looking how do we get the maximum people off the street and so they're not freezing to death outside.
Hi, John from Pioneer. Are they gonna have
What's that,
access-
Johnny from where?
John
From
from
Pioneer.
Oh, from Pioneer, yes.
Are they gonna have access to Wi-Fi there?
So Johnny from Pioneer asked, are they going to have access to Wi-Fi? So eventually, yes. We are actually working with, what's the name of the company? Verizon? We're trying to get, Comcast. We're working with Comcast to get fiber to the building so that we have enough bandwidth for folks to be able to use the Wi-Fi. But we're told it's like 6 to 8 weeks out. So eventually they will have access to Wi-Fi. It'll be better than what they had before. And so, again, when you're looking at 350 people on there, most people have a minimum of 1 item attached to Wi-Fi. Some people have 2 items attached to Wi-Fi, which means the number of, this is all the stuff I grew up with through life without ever knowing, but now I know, I'd rather not. But, so the bandwidth for that has to be different than like at your home. So, because most people have a minimum of 1, and again, 50% is what the IT guy told me, have 2 if they have an iPad or something like that. So eventually, yes, but we're trying to make sure that the bandwidth will be enough to be able to handle that load.
Becky Digger of League of Women Voters. We've heard there are a couple of outbreaks of viruses within Trent now. Is that true?
So Becky
Dickerhoff.
from League of Women Voters asked that she heard that there were viruses breakouts at Trent. The answer to that is we've had issues with people being sick. Again, when you have 275 people hanging around the building, somebody comes with a cold, of course that's going to happen. So There have been those issues. We've had asked people to isolate and to wear masks when they're safe, but again, we can't, we're not gonna kick somebody out if they're not wearing their mask. Because again, now we're dealing with, you're gonna freeze to death outside versus being inside. So we're encouraging them when they're sick to wear the mask, to do their medication, go to the doctor, they get a bus pass to get to the doctor. But again, they have to do that. We can't force people to do those things. We also have Chaz is in the building, I believe, twice a week, 3 times a week. Chaz is in the building 3 times a week, so they have opportunities in the building to meet with a medical professional. They also have opportunities to leave the facility and go to another location if they like.
And our health district person is going to talk about virus in general in Spokane, and maybe we'll have some more specifics about the traffic.
Is there a place that service providers can look to find out about these possible outbreaks that affect other congregate areas in our community?
Is that your question for the regional health district? We'll get to that, Julie.
Just so you know, we're going to be trying to send out, this is kind of, currently this is, everybody wants to know what's happening over at Trent, which we don't mind. But we're going to be sending out a daily update to the Homeless Coalition, and actually I think that was sent to you already. And so if you could forward that on, because Sandy didn't have access to the full list on her mobile, so just be connected to the network for that. But we'll be sending out a daily update of what's going on. I do have a bit of news, you'll hear about this later. Sadly, we have a gentleman that passed away last night due to his underlying medical conditions that was going on. He was 65, so it's obviously a little bit sad. It's very sad for us. Had a great conversation with his widow this morning, and it looks like, I believe her son is going to be coming to and pick her up people. So it is a sad situation anytime anybody passes away. But again, it's just a reminder for all of us that we need shelters to get people off the street and where they can get medical care. If they had not been with us, he would have passed away in his truck. His wife could not drive the truck, so that would have been a very even worse situation. So she does have the people around her to help her. I'm very happy with our staff. They all did the right thing. They used their little medical training they had to try to keep this person alive, but sadly it didn't work out that way. So again, when you deal with congregate populations like this is part of life. We wish it wasn't that way, but the fact of the matter is it did happen. So that's why we want to go first today, because we have to go back and continue working with families.
Thank you, Major Ken, for coming, and appreciate your update. Oh, one more question?
Sorry, Tammy with Frontier, could you just give an update for Trent? Give me updates for Cannon?
Tammy from Frontier Behavioral Health asked, I gave out the updates for Trent, trying to give an update for Cannon. Cannon is also working well, actually. It's moving along. There's some issues there. We also want to kind of update. Mainly it's their beds. They use these beds that were actually designed for teenagers, and yet we have folks that are adults. In fact, there were 2 adults, both over 400 pounds, that broke the beds, and we got another one that broke again. And so we're going to be changing those beds also to beds that are designed for adults. So we didn't know that was the situation until we took over in November. The city has been supplying us with beds, but the beds we received from them are beds designed for teenagers. They're not designed for adults.
Thank you, Major Ken. Kara, can you come up? Since we were talking about viruses, it seems like a perfect time to segue to you.
The price of beauty. I'm just kidding. Okay, obviously. I'm Kira. I work in Spokane Regional Health District. I work in the communicable disease program there. I'm just going to get started with the outbreaks that are going on in our shelters and congregate living facilities in Spokane. They are numerous. So there is, last time I kind of shared a little bit about RSV, and that is continuing. We have an RSV outbreak happening at Family Promise and at Rising Strong. There is an influenza A outbreak at UGM Men's, House of Charity, Track, and Family Promise. We have a GI outbreak happening at Track. GI gastrointestinal illness. So there hasn't been testing. We haven't gotten any confirmation of what specific bug is causing it, but we're hearing more and more reports of GI illness happening there. And then COVID outbreak at Marion's house and Pioneer Regional Stabilization Center. So our role, our program's role, communicable disease, epidemiology, we are really here to come alongside shelters and congregate living facilities and support them in finding feasible mitigation strategies, infection prevention strategies. We often do walkthroughs, and we have probably most people who work at a shelter have been a part of those walkthroughs. We do walkthroughs where we go space by space and identify where there's risk and try and come up with solutions to address that. So that is, our role is really in guidance and recommendations, and we really enjoy doing that. We really enjoy doing a walkthrough and trying to come up with the best solution. We totally acknowledge that there are typically a lot of not great options, and the best option is often not available, so we just come up with the best of the bad options. That's kind of our tagline, because the community at large, is not working with an abundance of resources and opportunity in this area, and so we really are just trying to help do what we can and really be supportive of shelters and congregate living facilities. I think I can't help but have a little message of what we can all do to help be infection prevention champions. Masking, especially in congregate spaces, staying home when you're sick and avoiding other people who are sick, washing your hands, disinfecting and cleaning and disinfecting surfaces, especially in public areas, and then getting vaccinated. We've got COVID boosters and your annual flu shot, really helpful. All of those can help you be an infection prevention champion. Okay, two other things. We are, from COVID dollars, we have been able to purchase, in the process of purchasing portable air purifiers with HEPA filters. These help reduce the number of germs in the air, all respiratory viruses, as well as, like in the smoky seasons, helping with air quality of spaces. So we are working with shelters and other homeless service sites to get them those air purifiers. And lastly, I want to address your question. We have hired our new homeless outreach coordinator, and it is Tammy Myers. We're so excited. Okay, and Jules, to kind of answer your question about is there a place where you can see what outbreaks are going on where? We have every Monday we have a meeting with shelter operators, and we talk about what outbreaks are going on, how other trends in kind of communicable diseases, and we are really open to expanding that. I've sent you an invite already. I've got Revive on that. Just sent these this morning. So I think that's one way to get good updates. And then the other thing is I wonder if, especially during this season where we have 4 illnesses that we're seeing circulating in outbreaks, I wonder if maybe doing a several times a week update to the Coalition email, would that be well received?
what I would just throw out as a possibility, after that Monday meeting when you met the folks, you type up a brief report, a paragraph or two, or something, or bullet points that I would either you could put out in the coalition or send to me and I could put it out.
Okay.
Does that sound helpful, folks?
Okay, I can't commit to anything because this is a today thought, but I think I don't really see why that would be doable for us, so go for it.
Is there a way for the general public to know, because we're asking people to go to these spaces and we're not telling them of potential issues going on, which then they leave for inclemental weather and go back to our shelters and our buildings and they bring with them whatever they receive somewhere else. So is there a way that the general public can know so that people have advance notice before they're forced to do something that they have no idea what they're doing?
I'm not sure. I think it's not private information. Outbreaks are not private information. I don't have a solution that's like right there, but you're right. It's a problem. Yeah.
Would the idea of a once a week on Monday sort of update be at least a start?
That would be super helpful, at least for service providers, so we know when, because especially for boots on the ground service providers, because we go from shelter to shelter transporting people, and we ask our
Right.
folks to go from
And
one
you don't know
facility
the
to the
conditions,
other.
yeah.
We need to be able to know what we're sending our folks and then what they may or may not be coming back with.
Right.
I think you had to do that first, yeah.
I don't know if it's possible or not, but the shelter in the Spokane site, we're directing people to that to look for openings. Maybe that's a place we should add this information, so when you're looking for openings, you know what's going on where.
I'm gonna check on that. I'll check on that.
Okay.
Karen Stratton will check on the shelter Spokane site of possibly putting virus conditions or health conditions on that site.
Yeah, go for it.
On Tuesday, there was, at the regional stabilization center, they were closed down for a couple days because of the COVID outbreak. And, I got a call from one of my coworkers there that said that they were discharged by people that they needed to find somewhere to send them because they had COVID and they just didn't want to, they didn't, we were trying to, we have nowhere, what you said, so we send people. They have to.
For those watching,
When they're being discharged, yes.
for those watching, the question is, if someone has COVID, where do they go?
The county does not have an isolation facility anymore. We did. It was a COVID-specific isolation facility that is no longer in operation. I think it's a case-by-case situation. Identifying where there are where there's space to isolate. I think a scenario, to give an example, a scenario would be if a shelter is already in an outbreak and they have an isolation space where they are designating an area for people to isolate, then it would be, if they are amenable to it, it would be appropriate for folks to join that isolation cohort. One of the challenges is that when a shelter is, when they are not an outbreak, they are utilizing their whole space for one people. When they have some cases, then they have to redesignate an area to be an isolation area, and often that's displacing people who were previously staying in that space. So in some ways, it is helpful to have, like if there's already isolation happening, then that space, you might not be putting as much pressure on the facility to take those people if they're already isolating folks and have room. Does that make sense?
Yeah, is there a way we can have like something, work on something like where there's an update of where the location is available for people that have COVID, they can go isolate?
Possibly. I think it changes so frequently. I think probably the best option is what happened is we work with is just reaching out to our team directly, and I think that's probably what say is the best option, is just to reach out to our team directly, and we go from there.
I know there's questions, this is very important, can be around at the end of the meeting, so if you can get Kira at the end. We just had a number of people to get on in a busy schedule, so thank you, Kira, for being here.
Thank you guys.
Julie? Julie's going to give us an update on Camp Hope.
So lots of stuff happening at Camp Hope this week and the later part of last week. We're working on mapping the camp, so we had some drone fly over and take pictures of the campsite, and we have been numbering tents. We have been identifying who's in each tent, and we've been removing tents and moving them 6 feet apart so that we can prevent any kind of fire that may occur anytime during the winter. We do recognize that regardless of every precaution that we put in place, people still have to stay warm. So burn barrels have been implemented so that they aren't burning in unsafe conditions. We have asked that all campers do not burn in their tents or near their tents. We have supplied 155 buddy heaters, indoor, outdoor use. We do understand that that's still propane. We are discouraging propane from being what is referred to in homeless world as hijacking from one bigger tank to a smaller tank, so we're providing the smaller tanks that are already filled by people before they get to people experiencing homelessness. We were able to, through our badging, get some of the information for all of the folks that are currently at the camp are now all badged. They've all had assessments done so that we can figure out what they need moving forward. We had a 7% decrease in people experiencing homelessness at our camp this month due to people getting transitional housing. Revive's doing an amazing job of housing people, and CAT is doing an amazing job of moving people through recovery services. We are currently operating under the fact that we may or may not be experiencing some kind of GI outbreak. We were only informed of this last night, so we have put those precautions into place as of this morning. Our precautions include our staff that has direct client engagement will be masked. More hand washing stations are being installed today. A new porta potty cleaning regimen is happening. It was before cleaned by the camp. It will now be cleaned by Jules Helping Hands on an hourly basis, and we'll be following all Spokane Regional Health Department guidelines in keeping our population safe.
Okay. One or two questions?
DSHS will continue to be there on Wednesdays until November.
So also, Tammy Myers, who's now working for the Spokane Regional Health Department, who works part-time for us as our identification coordinator, has DSHS on site every Wednesday. They will be there until they're no longer needed at the camp.
Anything else? Oh, you covered it all. Julie, thank you very much. Karen
Councilor Karen Stratton.
Just so you know, I give an open invitation to the city council to come every week and just tell us what's going on. And
Karen, pick us up on that. Ramona, you will be next. I also invite the CHHS department to come, and Ramona will talk about that next.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So people that know me well know that before I start any meeting or discussion, I have to tell a joke.
okay.
Yeah, because we need more laughter in our world today. So hold on here, let me pull it up. I wasn't very organized this morning. Okay. So, I just popped out. So Daffy Duck and Elmer Fudd break into a distillery. Daffy turns to Elmer and says, "Is this whiskey?" Elmer says, "Yes, but not as whiskey as Wabbing of Amy." Okay, so I'm going to open up my notes. I learned a valuable lesson. Last night, we were getting ready, I was putting notes together, so my generation, these are my notes. And then I had staff collect some information and they sent it all in text. So I'm gonna just kind of go through and give a council update. I don't know, do you get the commerce updates from, okay.
I do,
so
and I sent them out.
everybody gets them sent out, okay, so I have a copy of that if we need it. For those of you that have been watching the news, there was big concerns over Hope House and a couple other nonprofits, including Family Promise, that we're gonna have to close their doors because of lack of funding. And so what City Council has done, and we actually passed this, it was unanimous, we passed a resolution that said we're gonna fund existing shelters, those that have been on this journey with us for quite a while, before funding any new beds. That's gonna continue to be a discussion, but I think looking at different funds that we can take money out of, we should be able to piece something together. Council President is pretty confident that we can make that work. The other thing that we've been working on, again, it's been in the news, in the mayor's budget, she has taken the funding that she wants to fund the shelters, Track and Cannon and some of the others, by using our 1590 money. 1590 money is the money that we have, that we allocated, that we get every year for affordable housing. And so what we have done is, and again, I think that was a 7-0 vote, is to let the mayor know that we don't want that to happen. We need those funds for affordable housing. That's what that money was set aside for. There are some other funds in criminal justice areas that we can use to continue to fund shelters and whatever is needed at Track, and especially Track and the Cannon shelter. So those discussions are continuing, but I think we have the votes, and I think we have the support of council that says, no, we're not gonna use those money. We need to get that affordable housing. That needs to be helped for affordable housing. That's what we need to help us in this problem that we have, this ongoing problem with homelessness. The other thing that's interesting is I've been spending some time up on Sunset Hill with some of the businesses up there. And that is where, if you remember the old school, does anybody remember the old Spokane house? And how many went to prom and you went to dinner at the Spokane house? Yes, okay. So, go ahead, okay. So I've been working kind of between the businesses up there who have big concerns and Catholic Charities, and we're trying to get them to kind of come together and talk about how we can make that building, even just looking at the building, a little more acceptable. They don't want it to look like a shelter. I understand that. It's, you know, we deal a lot with people that don't want these kinds of programs in their backyards, and then once you get them and settled in, I always think about transitions. In my district, up from my house, that was a big deal for 2 years before Transitions put their housing in, and it's a great program, and I get no complaints anymore. So anyway, I'm continuing to kind of work with both groups to see what we can do to kind of calm down that concern and fear, I think is what it is, so we're working on that. I don't know if that building, if anybody's from Catholic Charities, I don't know if that's gonna be ready to go December 1st.
I'm here, I'll have it.
Okay, you can deal with that. But yeah, so we've got Jonathan Malahan, we've got some neighbors and some businesses up there working together. And I've also contacted Chris Bovey down here. He's got his shop. If you haven't been in his shop, go in there because he's an amazing artist. And I'm gonna connect them. Apparently they've worked together before. And one of my thoughts was, it doesn't have to look like a homeless shelter. It's what people keep thinking it is. What can we do to, make it artistic, put a mural, put some lighting, do something on it. So we'll be working with that too. But those are my top points. I am very concerned about, those of you that come to council meetings know that I'm very concerned about the way that the city has move forward with housing and trying to provide homeless services. I think that this is something that shouldn't have been a surprise. We've been dealing with this for a long time. I'm sorry, and I think the city government owes the community an apology that people can't seem to talk, and sit in a room and talk to each other and do what's best for the people that we're trying to help. And I apologize that it's gotten so political, because there's no room for politics in this. I had a brother who was homeless and who was a homeless vet, and I've been down that road, and it's, when you talk to families, when you talk to people that need help, they don't care who you voted for president, right? They just need that assistance, and we should be able to do that without having fights in the sandbox. So, Nicolette Ogletree is now our homeless and housing person for city council. It's a blessing, and she's been able to kind of work around and bring people together in city hall. So I'm looking forward to hopefully more open discussions. But frankly, last night I got a call at 10 o'clock about the outbreak at the track shelter, and that's something we should have known about before. We should have, most of the information I haven't heard any of this inside City Hall. So we'll try and do better to communicate and to see what we can do to move this forward in a positive way with some funding that makes sense.
Thank you, Karen. And I would
Open for questions, but don't have time for questions, so you can maybe catch them at the end.
Yeah, I'll be here, and then, you know, if anybody has jokes you want to share with me, tell me.
And she's kind of a public figure, so you might see her around.
Yeah, you'll see.
Ramona, who works for the Community Housing and Human Services Department of the City of Spokane. Tell us what you're doing. And then Catalyst will be our last one.
Well, I'm so glad to see everybody. Last time I was up here, somebody was asking me about the cooling centers, so I'm sure that's going to be a question. One of the things that I'll start with is that we did fill our position for the NHHS director. We have Kim McCollum, who did step into that, and we are really, really pleased as a staff to have her. She's very, very supportive, interacting very, very well with everybody, and it's hard to follow Karen, because I'm going to echo exactly what she said. We want open communication, and that's something I think that everybody at all levels is working on. And to bring more of what we call our sub-recipients into the picture, because that's what my department supports and works with, and somehow or another that's gotten lost, and so we're working with that. There was a question about our operations manager earlier. We have a new operations manager, and we got him from the county, and that's Richard Culpen. Some of you probably know him, but we're almost fully staffed, which means we're still underwater, because by the time you add extra staff, you've already doubled your workload. So we are working very, very hard to administer the contracts that we have to. That question might come up about contracts. We are working madly. That's another one of those things that we have to apologize for. The contracts were not being put out like they should have been. There was a lot of back and forth issues with payments. And Jen would normally be here, but she had to stay home with her kiddos, so I'm kind of filling in with what she would say. So all we can do is apologize. We are working on it. Things are getting better, and things are getting proven. There was a comment I'm sure you saw on the news about the 311 and how they're overloaded. You have to understand that we really are low staffed, and when people call in, the resources just aren't there. And as you all know, you're working with next to nothing to try and support the homeless individuals and those individuals that are working with the homeless. And we just don't have the resources. So we're really working very, very hard to refer, but we've gotten to a point where there's no place to refer individuals right now with this storm that's going on. We will continue to take those phone calls and refer them as best we can to the right resources. The comment also came up about the Shelter Me Spokane. That's a new dashboard that's available that shows what beds are available. However, it is a work in progress because we're finding that our technical side, the CHMIS, is not connecting with the same numbers, so we are working currently on getting that fixed. I don't know about adding the viral information, because every time something happens, it costs more money. And as you well know, you may not know, but we don't have the money to be doing that at this point, but I will look into it definitely. I think that's all I have. Quick questions?
No questions. We don't have time
Okay.
for questions. Thank you.
But I'll be around.
Yeah, questions after Catalyst. I said the last one to update on the Catholic Charities Catalyst project. But the main event is the Continuum of Care stakeholders meeting, because all of these have been just kind of quick little announcements, but we have the Continuum of Care stakeholders meeting next.
Hi, I'm Donna. We have a Christmas party later, so I apologize for my.
That's great.
So we are still planning on launching the Catalyst project next week with our first move-ins happening late last week. We have received our first set of referrals from SLIC and the on-site care navigators at Camp Hope. The rehab is continuing. This is a very old, not well-maintained hotel that we are in the process of getting everything prepared and safe, really, for the folks that we'll be serving. So the rehab will be continuing for a little bit longer once we start operating, but we've got complete access now to the entire 4th and 5th floor of the facility, as well as the common spaces and office spaces. And then we'll continue to bring those floors online, 1 floor a week until we are full. We'll be able to serve up to 120 people at the facility. We will accept couples or adult-only households. We cannot serve children on site. But we're really excited. We've got the entire team nearly hired. We've got about 35 hired folks who are on site ready to go 24/7. And we will have a 24/7 neighborhood safety team on site as well. If you've been by the facility, the fencing is almost complete. Our temporary sign is up on the monument sign. That will be a permanent one installed. And the next couple of weeks will take some time to get made and brought out to the facility. The meth remediation is completed. All of the major safety enhancements have been finished. The fire suppression system is in. And so we're really down to kind of some final plumbing pieces, with the showers and toilets are fully operational for any of the rooms that we'll be moving folks into, as well as the common spaces. We will have 3 on-site meals a day and a variety of social services available for folks, including behavioral health. The only way to get a referral into the project until the camp is completely handled will be through those on-site care navigators at Camp Hope. So any of your folks who are trying to get into the facility will need to be a badged person at Camp Hope until we're able to take on referrals from other locations, and we'll keep folks posted on when that may happen. That's really the flyby version, but we are still on track to move folks in starting late next week. Like I said, that you'll still see some of those contractors coming in, but they're just finishing up floors that we're not currently accessing. And by the end of the month, to be full. It's possible we'll go to that first week of January, but the goal is to have all 120 folks up there. Ideally by Christmas, but I can't promise that given the ongoing construction. The latest that the end of the month, early January, will be full.
Give them a round of applause. They have worked so hard on this.
And whether there's questions for the stakeholders meeting, Dale, please lead us in the Continuum of Care stakeholders meeting. And I'm going to go over there and punch the slide button so his slides can come up.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dale Breeze, and I'm interim chair of the Continuum of Care Board. And per HUD that funds us, we are tasked with having 2 stakeholder meetings per year. This year has gotten away from us, and so this is our year-end stakeholder meeting. This is going to be an educational piece about the HUD dollars, but also where we're at today. It is a lot of slides, and so I apologize for that. I'm going to try to get through them in a pretty, efficient way. Barry, next slide. And W8502 is our code per HUD. And so stakeholders are everybody within the community that is actually interested in participating in planning of homeless services and such. I see as everybody here within the Spokane Homeless Coalition as a stakeholder, and realize that it's sort of fed up because the usual chair of the board, the Homeless Coalition, Robert Littman, is a member of the board of the Continuum of Care. Okay, next slide. We are governed by HUD, Commerce, and then we have a collaboration with City of Spokane And so you can go to our city COC websites there, our governance charters there, history of our NOPOs, which are our grants to HUD, the point in time counts, minutes, and agendas. There's also a 5-year plan to end homelessness with attachment there, Spokane City County Continuum of Care 5-year performance management plan also. We are a very technical board. And so don't let that, discourage you from participating. Next slide. And so myself, there are 5-year membership terms, board membership terms. I'm terming out at the end of this month. My 5 years is up. So I've been one of the initial members of this set of COC board membership. And who am I? I'm a person with lived experience. I'm a 38-year survivor, public health monitored individual. 26 years I was employed full-time as a professional in this community. And in the last 12 years, I've had to actually delicately live between disability and employment as I have health challenges. So I come through things and see things in a different light. What we're going to accomplish today, though, is the stakeholder meeting. And next slide. This is just the chair board history. Pam Parr was initially Ben, and then myself, and then realized right now, as of yesterday, we had closed board applications, but it looks like we still have some board member slots open. And that will be voted on the new slate on the December meeting for a January 2023 onboarding. Next slide. This is the membership, seats. It's actually a little small for you to see there, but there is some at large. My position in PLE adult is a membership slot that's open. HUD is asking for that. My position actually has somebody that has had lived experience in the last 7 years. And I'm, going to be available to actually work with anybody on onboarding about how, the technical world is for somebody with PLE coming into this large planning body. So, but anyway, you can see that business we're going to need still an applicant for. We're going to need for the behavioral health, substance use, and I think what else is the chemical dependency? Yeah. Okay, I said that. Okay, next slide. So these are some of the most historical funds within the Spokane community for attaining assistance for the homeless. Okay, I've been around a long journey around homelessness in Spokane, and this is like 17, 18 years old now. The COC money is, and so it has built up to the portfolio of $4.2 million that we're at right now. And I'm really proud of the community for that. But it takes a lot of effort, planning, collaboration that we continue to come about. How do we, sort of encourage that? But you all, as stakeholders, can join a committee, singles, families, veterans, diversion, youth. I noticed one of the committee chairs is here, Eric. Nice to see you back there. So, but that's how we get sort of the feedback loop up to the board. So, next slide. This is our structure. You see the stakeholders, everybody in the community, continuing care board, collaborative applicant with the city of Spokane on one side, we got the county on another, we got the subcommittees underneath, and so it's there's many places to be involved. Next slide. HUD, I love HUD, 24 CFR 578. I just put these in there because I think it's important to talk about. Excuse me. That we actually have, this is our commitment to HUD. And so the purpose and scope, we're designed to promote community involvement, commitment to the goal of ending homelessness. Next slide. Provide funding for efforts, promote access, optimize self-sufficiency. Okay. We have MOUs, the COC does with the city of Spokane, our collaborative applicant. And this all started, it shifted out. Used to have 2 COCs in our community, believe it or not. The county used to have one, city of Spokane, and the county said, no, we're going to MOU over for the city of Spokane to actually take it on and lead. That's why we're a regional board. And so we MOU with the city, and then an MOU between the Spokane County, city of Spokane, and the COC. Next slide. And then we have the HARP Act. The HARP Act is really what changed our dynamics in our community for homelessness. And it certainly got us, I think personally, this is me PLE experience, it got us pigeonholed into just thinking about the chronic homeless and the inebriant, okay? Which is a wrong narrative. We know that there is so much more to homelessness out there. There's the working poor, there's the individual that just, might be transitional, but the interim rule locks this in to only take the coordinated assessment individual, the highest in need, and place them in housing. So our funds sort of got reprioritized by HUD. They took away some of the mandate for match services, match funding. And so, but this was in 2012. Next slide. So that's what we've been running with, okay, since 2012. And, I can make these available to you later on, so if you want to read more through. Next slide. Next slide. Commerce came in 2018, okay, and said, we need every community to make a 5-year plan. So that's a performance target by Commerce. So that's why you see there's, in some of our governance charter, there's a performance portfolio in there, management portfolio for Commerce. But so that's how we had to develop a 5-year plan, which is currently 2020 to 2025. Next slide. Next slide. And then, this dictates how our board is. They want to see us, collaboration of many entities across the board. Just a collaboration. Next slide. And membership, who is responsible? The COC board. Next slide. And then our governance. This is us. And what we have a mission statement is the vision of Spokane City County COC is to bring together resources and resourceful people who create a community where everyone has a safe, stable place to call home. Next slide. Mission, the mission of the community-based Spokane City County COC is to make homeless rare, brief, and non-recurrent in our area by fostering shared responsibility among stakeholders and coordinating resources essential to the success of local plans to end homelessness. That is our mission. Next. And by the way, we answer to that within our HUD portfolio, our NOPOs, that question all the time. This is the strategic plan to end homelessness, which is in the 5-year plan. Our objectives: quickly identify and engage people experiencing homelessness. We see that through coordinated entry. We got sidetracked this year with Department of Commerce money. Objective 2, prioritization of homeless housing for people with the highest needs. That's what I was just sharing earlier, is that we actually have, our coordinated entry, these dollars have us have historically headed that way. Next slide. Effective and efficient homeless crisis response housing and services that swiftly moves people into stable permanent housing. And then objective 4, projection of the impact of the fully implemented plan. And then objective 5, address racial disparities among people experiencing homelessness. Realize that we get measured to our plan locally, but because these dollars are competitive across the U.S. with other locations and other communities, we really need to score high on these objectives and have a really healthy response. Next. Because we have been determined, and we got awarded a UFA community designation a couple years ago, which is one of 10 across the nation, okay? Which I'm really proud of, because that happened in the tenure of being on the board. But that means we have extra measurements we have to be up against, and extra boxes we have to mark on our NOFO about who we include, or who are we assessing, and how are we getting our feedback, stakeholder feedback. But this enables us as a community to move around some of the funds we receive in a simpler way without getting HUD permission, or it just gives us more flexibility. But this takes on an extra challenge, but it does give us that flexibility. Next. Basic acronyms: emergency shelter, TH. I just threw this in there because I thought it would be applicable for what we go to what's funded ahead. Next slide. More SSO, support services only. You'll see that on our awards, and I'll get to in a bit, because we do have a few of those projects. Next slide. Definitions of homelessness. Getting back to the most chronic need, okay? And these are HUD's definitions. What we've seen recently is, historically, we've been in with chronic homeless, chronic disabled, yet we have seen that there's been energy that has had to be shifted to other homeless, like, providers and such that might be serving others. So that's the way I'm looking at the expansion of the trench shelter, by the way. Is we have these historical dollars, but now we have to go the extra step and serve other categories of homelessness. Okay, next slide. So literally homeless is really what we've been serving. Next slide. And it gets technical in there, but I really encourage to go through these, go to HUD and look at these and see where we're at and give feedback and see where our services are and how might your service fit within one of these. Next slide. Imminent risk, okay, you know what that is. Next slide. Under statutes, this is for youth, majority of that within our community. Next. Next. Fleeing, attention to fleet DV. We do have DV programs in our community. Okay, next. Next. This is our CD system. You'll see the coordinate, I'm sorry, turn around here. That, is supposed to be a pretty nicely workflow through, but yet we get hiccups because we always seem to be responding in unhealthy ways, or maybe questioning ways, or maybe an entity didn't have that plan come forward to talk and communicate with. That's what I see, is really how do we get all the entities talking together that might have dollars to assist and such, so we can get a healthier plan, or nurture this out a little bit, polish it. Next. Our current programs are, the City of Spokane Collaborative Applicant, UFA costs, Hope House, I'll let you read these, Catholic Charities, Homeless Families Coordinated Assessment, their PSH, Permanent Supportive Housing Consolidation, and then YWCA Rapid Rehousing for DV. Next slide. More current programs, Hope House. By the way, these are support services dollars that are in collaboration with the vouchers that actually go in some of the buildings. So Section 8 vouchers, project-based, that Housing Authority historically has, been a part of our planning. So then support services dollars. So if you see Hope House, it's not for the shelter, it's for the support services dollars for actually the apartments. The HMIS project, Catholic Charities, SMS. Alex's House is actually one of the transitional units that we fund. VOA, offsite PSH, Samaritan. Some of these dollars for VOA, next slide, are actually rental assistance dollars and leasing dollars. So when we think about the COC as a portfolio, we see a lot of the buildings downtown supported by that, but VOA actually has one of the most unique programs, scattered site housing programs out there, that actually is master leases with landlords in the community, and that people can go from homelessness to being a part of the community. It's the only program like that west of Mississippi. So we're really proud of that, actually. That's one of the oldest programs. Next slide. What we have pending, YHDP, Youth Homeless Demonstration Project, $2.7 million, that's getting up and running right now. I think they're still looking for host homes, maybe. That's, in collaboration with the city. And then we have an RFP or NOFO out for supplemental and shelter, which would be fitting some of the categories of homelessness that we haven't historically hit. That's what I'm saying, is we're expanding now to look at the other categories of housing, definitions of homeless housing through HUD. Next slide. Some of our successes that we actually were one of the first community systems to adopt CE. We have the Veterans by Name List, we have the Envision Center, we have the Diversion First program, we have Youth by Name List, created youth system, move on strategy. There is a move on strategy of leaving people actually that want to graduate from the program that actually gets a voucher to go into independent living, which frees up that unit. Next slide. We need improvement on these things. Community education, outreach efforts, people with lived experience. That's a hard one. Stigma is real. Achieve high performance, and then always attend to policies and procedures. These are sort of the technical things that it's like, I'm just going to be real with that we need improvement. We're always addressing that. Next slide. We have a calendar of events. I know you can't see this, but it's standard monthly meetings across the board with performance measurement. I'm looking at Ramona here, at the city of Spokane. And so, anyway, we gotta like a calendar to keep us organized. Next. And then exits. These are some of the exits that are positive for our community that we actually get credit on for our high performance UFA status, is that people move on into a healthy outcome. Next. These are all positives. If we can get people anywhere in the community to do this, coming out of homelessness, we get a positive result. Next. And then our body of work, continuum care, the website, continuum care, City of Spokane, or vice versa. You can look there. We have actually reports on there and such. And I typed this last night because board recruitment is going on now. It ended yesterday, but we still have those 3 slots. We need individuals. But that would be my stakeholder meeting update for this year. And actually, it's sad because it's like, I've been doing this a long time, and it's like, nah, this is my last, for now. We'll figure out what I'm doing next. But yeah, any questions?
We'll give Dale a hand for his magnificent service for 20 years. All right, that ends our official program. Any announcements anybody wants to make? Yes, sir. Come on over here. Let's get you on camera so the folks at home can hear and see you too.
I just wanted to make an announcement that on December 5th, City Council is voting on new tenant protection ordinance. Sorry, my name is Salvador. I'm with the tenant union. I work with Terry Anderson. So it would be really appreciated if we could have your support. I know there's going to be a strong landlord presence opposed to the ordinances, but they lay a good foundation for tenant protections. We will be discussing the ordinances later today, and we have sent out an invitation to Zoom. So if you can please attend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also with the, I'm also the Tangians. I'm going to echo what he says. And last Monday, we only had 4 people testify for the renters. We are unfortunately, we're bombarded by a bunch of angry landlords. So please call your members, anybody who cares about this, to come down Monday at 6 o'clock, testify.
Thank you. Anything else we need to hear? Once, twice. Thank you. Coming out on a day like this, you get an award.